Right, welcome back and much appreciation for keeping it here. And as I informed you earlier, let me usher in Bushebi Jr. with a special segment, The Presidents from Luoland.
I take the journey on the history lane to explore the philosophy, ideology, leadership and the cost paid by great leaders of the Luo nation. Here is the journey of Mzee Oginga Odinga and his son Raila Odinga. My name is Bushebi Jr.
The press must be a champion of the social, political and economic development of the people.
Nimekuacha siku nyingi kwa sababu wewe ni rafiki yangu. Kama si hivyo, wewe najua mimi ningefanya nini? Hapana, kazi yako kuniambia nitupe wapi. Mimi najua mwenyewe. Mimi najua mwenyewe. Labda wewe usemao naweza kutupa wewe ndani ya manyani kuliko rafiki yangu.
They told me they've been trying to see Mzee for a long time. They couldn't. So they asked me whether I could assist. And I flatly refused. And then they said something interesting. They said, now we come to you as a child. You have denied us. So maybe we just have to die. He told me, you know what they want to do. They want to bring Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. And he has been getting money from communist countries to destabilize my government. There's money that was being paid to an account in Greater's Bank. And I had known who it was. The signatories were high-ranking people in the government. And when I saw the account, I recognized it. And I had the account in my wallet myself. And I told this account is not Mzee Jaramogi's account. This account is so and so and so. And he said, good Lord. And he said, okay, I'll meet them. And we were in Mombasa. And Mzee told me, you go and tell your Jalus, including Odinga, I'll see them on the 23rd of August now. I came up, and the 22nd night, that's when Mama Ngina called me. I said, Mzee had passed away.
He was detained for 18 months until the government made the decision to free him on 27th March in 1971. He consigned to political limbo until after Kenyatta's death in August 1978. Odinga attempted to register a political party in 1982, but when Attorney General Charles Njonjo amended the constitution which made Kenya a single-party state, his plans failed. Odinga remained vocal in his calling for democracy. In 1991, he founded the National Democratic Party, but the government refused to recognize it again and briefly jailed Oginga Odinga.
It should be a party of collective responsibility rather than a party of personalities.
After effective international protests, Oginga Odinga and 5 other opposition members formed the Forum for Restoration of Democracy, FORD. This was the core of the pro-democracy movement, changing Kenya's political landscape and opening up the political space in 1992. Kenyatta's successor Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi appointed Oginga Odinga as chairman of the Cotton Lint and Seed Marketing Board. He did not last long in the post, presumably because he was still outspoken against Kenyatta's policies. Following the failed coup of 1982 against Moi's government, the late Oginga Odinga was placed under house arrest in Kisumu. However, the formation of FORD triggered a chain of events that were to change Kenya's political landscape, culminating in ending KANU's 40 years in power, 8 years after Oginga Odinga's death.
Wimbo ninaimba sio wimbo ni maombi, nikiomba Mwenyezi Mungu aibariki Kenya yangu. Wajina
Odinga was polygamous and had 4 wives: Mary Juma, Gaudensia Adea, Susan Agik, and Betty Adongo. With these wives, he had 17 children. Mary is the mother of Raila Odinga and Oburu Odinga. Mary died in 1984.
When my mother died, for example, my family sent me a telegram to inform me that my mother had passed on. And they kept this telegram for a long, they never gave it to me. But of course, a friend of mine who was also detained had received the information. But then he had communicated with a way of underground communication. So I had known. Now when this Askari came to eventually now break the news to me, at first he was looking at my reaction, if I would be shocked, because otherwise we'd know that somebody had told me. So when he came to tell me, I artificially burst into tears. But they were telling me 3 months later, yet they received the telegram immediately that my mother passed on.
In an era of unrelenting human rights abuse by the Kenyan government, Raila Odinga was placed under house arrest for 7 months after evidence seemed to implicate him along with his late father Oginga Odinga for collaborating with the plotters of a failed coup attempt against President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi in 1982. Hundreds of Kenyan civilians and thousands of rebel soldiers died in the coup. Several foreigners also lost their lives. Odinga was later charged with treason and detained without trial for 6 years.
When I was arrested, I was first charged with treason, meaning that it is a charge that carries a mandatory death sentence. So you walk here with a red C on your chest, wearing those prison kaptulas. In those days they didn't have trousers. I was basically on death row. I was on death row. That place, people were not allowed to come and see you. You are isolated from the rest of other remandees, and you are kept in the cells for 23 hours out of 24. You're only allowed out for half a quarter of an hour in the morning, again half an hour at lunch, and again a quarter of an hour again in the afternoon. So most of the times you are in the cells, and you're not receiving any visitors.
Tabu zangu shida zangu ziangalie Kenya yangu. Tabu zangu shida zangu ziangalie Kenya yangu. Ewe Kenya inji yangu, ewe Kenya baba yangu, ewe Kenya mama yangu, sitakuacha milele. Matajiri masikini yo, sisi zote binadamu.
A biography released 14 years later in the July of 2006, apparently with Odinga's approval, indicated that Odinga was far more involved in the attempted coup than he had previously admitted. After its publication, some members of parliament in Kenya called for Odinga to be arrested and charged, but the statute of limitations had already passed, and since the information was contained in the biography, did not amount to an open confession on his part. Among some of his most painful experiences was when his mother died in 1984, but the prison wardens took 2 months to inform him of her death. He was released on 6th February 1988 only to be rearrested in September 1988 for his pro-democracy and human rights agitation at a time when the country continued to descend deep into the throes of poor governance.
Akili zangu nguvu zangu nimeziweka mbele yako, bibi yangu na watoto nimewaweka mbele yako.
His encounters with the authoritarian government generated an aura of intrigue about him, and it was probably due to this that his political followers christened him Agwambo, Luo for the mystery or unpredictable, or Jacom, meaning chairman. Odinga was released on 12th June in 1989, only to be incarcerated again on 5th July 1990, together with Kenneth Matiba and former Nairobi Mayor Charles Rubia, multi-party system and human rights crusaders. Odinga was finally released on 21st June in 1991, and in October, he fled the country to Norway amid indications that the increasingly corrupt Kenyan government was attempting to assassinate him without success. At the time of Odinga's departure to Norway, the Forum for the Restoration for Democracy (FORD), a movement formed to agitate for the return of multi-party democracy to Kenya, was newly formed. In February 1992, Odinga returned to join FORD, then led by his father Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. He was elected vice chairman of the General Purposes Committee of the party. In the months running up to the 1992 general election, FORD split into FORD Kenya, led by Odinga's father Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and FORD Asili, led by Kenneth Matiba. Odinga became FORD Kenya's deputy director of elections. Odinga won the Lang'ata constituency parliamentary seat, previously held by Philip Liki of Kanu. Odinga became the second father of multi-party democracy in Kenya after Kenneth Matiba. When Jaramogi Oginga Odinga died in January 1994 and Michael Wamalwa Kijana succeeded him as FORD Kenya chairman, Odinga challenged him for the party leadership. The elections were marred by controversy, after which Odinga resigned from FORD Kenya to join the National Development Party (NDP).
The knack is still there. We'll have another go at another election. Wamalwa Kijana is no longer chairman of FORD Kenya.
In his first bid for the presidency in the 1997 general election, Odinga finished third after President Moi, the incumbent, and Democratic Party candidate Mwai Kibaki, but he, however, retained his position as the Lang'ata Member of Parliament. In a surprise move, Odinga decided to support Moi, his arch-enemy, even entering into a political merger between his party NDP and Moi's much-hated KANU party, which many Kenyans likened to the yoke of oppression. The merger was called New KANU. Previous admirers of Odinga now saw him as a sellout to a cause he had once championed by closing ranks with the despot. He accepted a position in Moi's cabinet as energy minister, serving from June 2001 to 2002 during Moi's final term. In the subsequent KANU elections held later that year, he was elected the party's Secretary General, replacing Joseph Kamotho. It was apparent to many that Odinga hoped to ascend to the presidency through KANU and with Moi's support. In 2002, much to the chagrin of Odinga and many other hopefuls in the party, Moi endorsed the young Uhuru Kenyatta, son of Kenya's first President Jomo Kenyatta, but a relative newcomer in politics, to be his successor. Moi publicly asked Odinga and others to support Uhuru as well.
Na huyu ndiye Uhuru
Kenya weni mama yangu, wacha wao waporomoke, wacha wao waporomoke. Viongozi wetu tuombeni, viongozi wetu tuombeni, wacha wao waporomoke, wacha wao waporomoke, wananchi.
This was taken as an affront by many of the party loyalists who felt they were being asked to make way for a newcomer who, unlike them, had done little to build the party. Odinga and other KANU members, including Kalonzo Musyoka, George Saitoti and Joseph Kamoso, opposed this step, arguing that the then 38-year-old Uhuru Kenyatta was politically inexperienced and lacked the leadership qualities needed to govern. Moi stood his ground, maintaining that the country's leadership needed to pass to the younger generation. Dissent ran through the party, with some members openly disagreeing with Moi, despite his reputation as an autocrat. It was then that the Rainbow Movement was founded, comprising disgruntled KANU members who exited KANU. The exodus led by Odinga saw most big names fleeing the party.
Wasundu akawatoka, sio? Karauri vile vile alitoka mapema, aliona kama hatari inakuja. Sasa sisi wenyewe hatukungoja. Jana mchana tulisema kwanza Mheshimiwa Mudi Awori, Mheshimiwa William Ole Ntimama, Mheshimiwa Dr. Du Awiti, Mheshimiwa Orwa Ojode, Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka, Odinga. Tulisema sisi hatungoji kupigwa kalama, sisi tunatoka, chukua kazi yako na uende naye.
Moi was left with his hand-picked successor, almost alone, with the party reduced to an empty shell with poor electoral prospects. I take the journey on the history lane to explore the philosophy, ideology, leadership and the cost paid by great leaders of the Luo nation. Here is the journey of Mzee Oginga Odinga and his son Raila Odinga. My name is Bushebi Jr.
The press must be a champion of the social, political, and economic development of the people. It must thus seek to report on the efforts of the people to bring about these developments.